Black Widow risked her last $800 on an abandoned home. What she finds inside was shocking. Eva Holloway's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she counted the bills again. $800. That was it. Everything that remained after the funeral costs, the medical bills, and 3 months of falling behind on rent. Outside her car window, rain pelted the county auction parking lot, matching the tears that threatened to spill down her cheeks. "Pull yourself together," she whispered, dabbing at her eyes with a crumpled tissue. It had been exactly 47 days since Robert's heart had given out while he was mowing the lawn. 47 days of crying herself to sleep, of dodging creditors' calls, and of wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Yesterday's eviction notice had been the final blow. Now she sat in her 12-year-old Honda Civic, surrounded by boxes containing what remained of her possessions, staring at her last hope, the county foreclosure auction. Eva tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and studied the property listing one more time. Most of the homes would go for tens of thousands, well beyond her reach. But property number 37, a small abandoned house on Willow Lane, had been sitting vacant for years. The starting bid was set at $500, and according to the gossip she'd overheard while registering, no one was interested. The place was supposedly a disaster, with structural issues that would cost a fortune to fix. But Eva had watched enough home renovation shows during her sleepless nights to know that sometimes, beneath the ugly surface, there was value to be found. And right now, she needed a miracle. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the community center as Eva slipped inside, taking a seat in the back row. She clutched her bidding paddle, number 16, so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Next up, property 37, single-family residence at 1422 Willow Lane. Starting bid $500. Eva raised her paddle with a trembling hand. "500 from number 16. The auctioneer called, scanning the room. "Do I hear 550? The silence in the room was deafening. People shifted in their seats, a few whispers rippled through the crowd, but no paddles went up. "500 going once." A man in a suit near the front turned to glance at Eva, raising an eyebrow before shaking his head slightly and turning away. "500 going twice." Eva held her breath. "Sold to bidder 16 for $500. Just like that, she was a homeowner again. After signing the paperwork and paying the fees, Eva had $267 left to her name. But she had a roof, albeit a potentially leaky one, over her head. 3 hours later, Eva pulled up to 1422 Willow Lane and stared at her new home. "Oh my God!" she whispered, her heart sinking. The listing photos hadn't done justice to just how bad it was. The small Victorian-style house might have been charming once, but years of neglect had taken their toll. Paint peeled from the siding like skin after a sunburn. 2 front windows were boarded up, and weeds had claimed the yard, growing knee-high in some places. The porch sagged in the middle, as if it might collapse under its own weight. A neighbor watering plants next door watched her with undisguised curiosity. "You the new owner?" he called out. Eva nodded, trying to look more confident than she felt. "Just bought it today." "Brave woman," he said, shaking his head. "That place has been empty since old man Hollister died. Must be 5 years now. Good luck." Eva grabbed her toolbox from the trunk, one of Robert's few possessions she couldn't bear to sell, and approached the front door. The key stuck in the lock, requiring some jiggling before it finally turned with a rusty groan. The smell hit her first, musty, damp, with hints of something rotting. Eva covered her nose with her sleeve as she stepped inside. Dust particles danced in the beams of light filtering through cracks in the boarded windows. The floors creaked ominously beneath her feet. The interior was worse than she'd imagined. Graffiti covered one wall of what must have been the living room. Old furniture, a moldy couch, a broken coffee table, had been left behind. In one corner, there was evidence that animals had made themselves at home. "I can do this," Eva said aloud, her voice echoing in the empty space. "I just need to start somewhere." She spent the remainder of the afternoon taking inventory. The kitchen had outdated appliances from the 70s, but the pipes seemed intact. 2 small bedrooms upstairs needed new drywall and flooring. The bathroom would require a complete overhaul. But the bones of the house were surprisingly solid. The foundation showed no major cracks, and the roof, while old, wasn't leaking. By sunset, Eva had cleared enough space in one bedroom to set up her air mattress. She'd need to buy a camping lantern tomorrow. The electricity wouldn't be turned on until next week. As darkness fell, she sat cross-legged on her makeshift bed, eating a peanut butter sandwich by the light of her phone. She pulled up a real estate app and checked comparable homes in the area. Even in terrible condition, houses in this neighborhood were selling for $150,000 after renovations. If she could do most of the work herself and find bargains on materials. "I could flip this," she whispered, hope flickering for the first time in weeks. "I just need time." On her second day of ownership, Eva focused on the downstairs. She filled 3 contractor bags with trash and broken items, hauled away the unsalvageable furniture, and scrubbed the kitchen until her hands were raw. In what must have been a home office, she discovered an antique roll-top desk, water-damaged but still beautiful. It was locked shut, the mechanism rusted with age. Eva ran her fingers over the oak surface. Something this nice might fetch a decent price if restored properly. She tried the lock again, then looked through her toolbox for something to pry it open. Finding a flathead screwdriver, she carefully worked it into the seam where the roll-top met the desk. With a crack, the lock gave way, and the top slid back, revealing cubbyholes filled with old papers, receipts, and odds and ends. Eva began sorting through them. Most were worthless, damaged by moisture or time. Then her fingers touched something different, a thick envelope taped to the underside of one cubbyhole. She peeled it free and opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn map with an area of town circled in red. Below it was written an address. Storage Facility, 1600 Commerce Way, Unit 227. Next to that was tomorrow's date, circled twice, and a time. 11 a.m. But it was the final line, written in bold red ink, that made Eva's blood run cold. $5 million, final deadline. Eva stared at the paper, her heart pounding in her chest. $5 million? What had she stumbled into? She checked the envelope again, finding a small key taped to the inside. A storage unit key? Her mind raced with possibilities. Was this some kind of joke? A scavenger hunt? Or had she unknowingly purchased a house connected to something dangerous? As night fell, Eva decided to sleep in her car instead of the house. Something about the note had unnerved her. As she reclined her seat and pulled a blanket over herself, she noticed headlights at the end of the street. A gray sedan had parked about 50 yards away, its lights now off. She watched for nearly an hour, but the car didn't move. Whoever was inside was watching her house in the darkness. Eva clutched the map and key in her hand, her exhaustion now replaced by a mixture of fear and curiosity. Robert had always said her stubbornness would get her into trouble someday. "Well, Robert," she whispered to herself, "let's hope it gets me out of trouble, too." Tomorrow at 11 a.m., she would find out what was waiting for her at Unit 227, and why someone was willing to pay $5 million for it. Eva barely slept that night, her mind racing with possibilities as she kept one eye on the gray sedan parked down the street. Around 3 a.m., the car finally pulled away, but the damage was done. Her sense of security had vanished. When morning came, Eva pulled a baseball cap low over her eyes and drove to a coffee shop 3 miles from her new house. She needed to think clearly. With her hands wrapped around a steaming cup, she studied the map again. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, in an industrial area she rarely visited. "Get a grip," she muttered to herself. "It's probably nothing." But if it was nothing, why was someone watching her house? And what about that $5 million figure? At 10:30, Eva pulled into the parking lot of Secure Lock Storage, a sprawling complex of orange single-story buildings surrounded by chain-link fencing. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she approached the office. A bored-looking attendant glanced up from his phone. "Help you? I need to access Unit 227, Eva said, trying to keep her voice steady. The man's posture changed immediately, his eyes narrowing with interest. ID? She handed over her driver's license, praying that whatever name was on the unit wouldn't raise red flags. The attendant typed something into his computer. You're not on the authorization list for that unit. I should be, Eva said, injecting confidence she didn't feel into her voice. My name is Eva Holloway. Holloway? The attendant raised an eyebrow. There's no Holloway on this unit. Check again, Eva insisted. Maybe it's under E. Holloway. I recently moved in. You're not the first person asking about that unit this week. The attendant interrupted, studying her face carefully. Eva's mouth went dry. What do you mean? 2 men came by yesterday. Didn't have the right paperwork either. He leaned forward. Look, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but that unit's rent is paid up for another 3 years. Automatic payments. Nobody's accessed it in a long time. An idea struck her. I just inherited some property from a relative. That unit might be part of the estate. I found the key, but I'm still sorting through the paperwork. She pulled out the key, letting him see it. Would this help? The attendant hesitated, then shrugged. He looks right. Sign this visitor log, and I'll walk you back. But if that key doesn't work, you're out of luck. Eva scrawled a barely legible signature and followed him through a maze of corridors. Unit 227 was located in the back corner, away from the main pathways. 10 minutes, the attendant said, checking his watch. Then I'm coming back. The key slid into the lock smoothly. With a deep breath, Eva turned it and lifted the rolling door. Dust particles floated in the beam of sunlight that illuminated the unit's contents. Several wooden crates stacked against the back wall, a tarp-covered shape in one corner, and directly in front of her, a single black duffel bag. Working quickly, Eva examined the crates first. They were sealed shut, too heavy to move easily. The tarp covered what appeared to be old furniture. It was the duffel bag that drew her attention. Inside, she found nothing but crumpled newspapers dated 10 years earlier. 3 minutes! The attendant called from somewhere nearby. Frantically, Eva searched the rest of the unit. Under the duffel bag, she found a small black cloth package. Unwrapping it revealed a safe deposit box key with the numbers 547 etched into the metal. She took the key and the map, leaving everything else undisturbed. The attendant was waiting when she emerged. Find what you needed? He asked too casually. Not really. Just some old family junk. Eva forced a disappointed look. As she walked back to her car, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. In the reflection of her car window, she spotted them, 2 men in dark jackets, one pretending to talk on his phone while watching her, the other leaning against a black SUV parked 3 spaces from her Honda. Eva got into her car without looking back, her hands trembling as she started the engine. In her rearview mirror, she saw the men get into the SUV. She took 3 right turns in a row, confirming her suspicion. They were following her. At a busy intersection, when the light turned yellow, Eva gunned the engine and shot through, leaving the SUV trapped behind a delivery truck. Her temporary escape bought her time to think. The safe deposit box key was burning a hole in her pocket. Whatever was happening involved serious money and dangerous people. She should walk away now, call the police, forget she ever found anything. But Eva remembered the eviction notice, the mounting debts, and the helpless feeling of watching her life crumble after Robert's death. She clutched the steering wheel tighter. Someone had hidden something valuable enough that people were still looking for it years later. Something worth $5 million. And now, for better or worse, she was in the middle of it. The downtown branch of First National Bank stood like a stone sentinel amid the more modern glass buildings surrounding it. Eva circled the block twice before parking, scanning for any sign of the black SUV or the men who had followed her earlier. Inside, the marble floors and dark wooden panels gave the bank an air of old money and secrets well kept. Eva approached the customer service desk, clutching her purse where she'd hidden the key. I need to access a safe deposit box, she said quietly. Certainly. Do you have an account with us? The teller's smile was practiced and perfect. I'm not sure, Eva admitted. It might be under E. Holloway. The teller's fingers tapped at her keyboard. I don't see any accounts under that name, but let me check the safe deposit registry. A moment later, her eyebrows raised slightly. Oh, there is an E. Holloway on our safe deposit registry. Box 547. Eva's heart skipped. That's the one. ID, please? And your key? Eva handed over her driver's license and the key from the storage unit. The teller examined both carefully. The name matches, though this box hasn't been accessed in years, she noted. Please wait here while I verify. 5 minutes later, Eva was led into a private room with the metal box sitting on a table. The bank employee gave her a polite nod. Take your time. Press the button when you're finished. Alone with the box, Eva took a deep breath and opened it. Inside was a flash drive, a thick manila envelope, and a smaller envelope with her name, Eva, handwritten on the front. She opened this one first, her hands shaking. The note inside was brief. Eva, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Whatever you do, don't trust Marcus Levon. The files enclosed are insurance. Use them only if absolutely necessary. I'm sorry for bringing this to your door. J. Eva knew no one with that initial who would leave her something like this. She opened the manila envelope next, finding a contract dated 11 years ago and several pages of property listings with names, dates, and dollar amounts scrawled in the margins. As she scanned the documents, a chill crept up her spine. These were records of cash real estate transactions, properties bought for cash, renovated minimally, then sold at massive markups to shell companies. Classic money laundering. Next to several of the properties was the same notation. ML approval. Flipping to the final page, Eva gasped. There was a list of names, people who had facilitated these transactions. At the top was Marcus Levon, developer. Marcus Levon. The name struck her like a physical blow. Levon was one of the city's most prominent real estate developers, his name emblazoned on half a dozen major buildings downtown. His company had sponsored local charity events, and his smiling face appeared regularly in the business section of the newspaper. He had also attended Robert's funeral. Eva remembered him now, a tall man with silver hair who had shaken her hand and offered condolences, saying he and Robert had crossed paths professionally. She had thought nothing of it at the time, assuming he was one of Robert's insurance clients. But what if there was more to it? What if Robert had somehow known about this money laundering operation? Eva's mind raced. The note mentioned using the files as insurance. The map found in the desk had tomorrow's date marked as a final deadline for $5 million. What if Robert had been blackmailing Levon? What if whoever wrote the note had been doing the same? Even more disturbing, what if Robert's heart attack hadn't been natural at all? Eva quickly photographed several key documents with her phone before returning everything to the box. She pocketed the flash drive, closed the box, and pressed the button to summon the attendant. Back in her car, Eva sat motionless, trying to process what she'd discovered. If these documents were real, they implicated one of the city's most powerful men in a major financial crime. The $5 million figure suddenly made sense. It was hush money, a payoff that someone had been expecting to collect tomorrow. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We heard you have something that belongs to us. $5 million. Tomorrow. No police. Meet at the address circled on the map. Eva's blood turned to ice. How had they gotten her number? Who exactly was we? She started her car, her mind shifting into survival mode. If Levon's people thought she had whatever they were looking for, she needed leverage. But she also needed protection. A plan began forming in her mind, risky, but possibly her only chance. She wouldn't be a victim again, not after everything she'd already lost. First, she needed to make copies. Then she needed a safe place to stash the originals. And finally, she needed to understand exactly what she was dealing with, because tomorrow, she would be walking into the lion's den. Eva worked methodically through the night. At a 24-hour copy center across town, she made duplicate sets of every document, careful to wear gloves so she left no fingerprints. Using a public computer, she created a full digital backup of the flash drive contents, more transaction records, emails between conspirators, and photos of cash handoffs at construction sites. The evidence was damning. Marcus Levon and his associates had laundered over $30 million through fake real estate deals over the past decade. By dawn, Eva had stashed the original files in an envelope addressed to herself at the downtown library's book drop, using a false name for the return address. No one would look for them there, and they'd be safe until she retrieved them, if she could. Back at her rundown house on Willow Lane, Eva showered and changed clothes. Her phone buzzed again with another text. Final instructions: come alone. Bring all materials, digital and physical. Any police involvement deal is off. Eva studied the map again. The circled location was a construction site for Levin's newest project, a high-rise apartment complex on the riverfront. The perfect place for a meeting that no one was supposed to witness. As she prepared to leave, Eva's eye caught a small news clipping that had fallen from one of the document folders. It was dated 3 years ago. Local businessman James Hollister found finished. The name sent shockwaves through her. Hollister, the previous owner of her house. The one who had died 5 years ago, according to her neighbor. Except he hadn't died 5 years ago. The article mentioned that Hollister had been a junior partner at Levon Development before striking out on his own. Police had found no note, but financial troubles were suspected as the motive. James Hollister. J. The initial on the note in the safe deposit box. Everything clicked into place. Hollister must have discovered Levin's money laundering scheme while working for him. Instead of reporting it, he'd collected evidence and attempted blackmail. But something had gone wrong. He'd hidden the evidence in his house, in the roll-top desk, and in the storage unit before he finished himself. The $5 million wasn't a gift, it was a payoff that had gone missing when Hollister died. And now, years later, someone had orchestrated events to bring her to that house, hoping she'd find the evidence and lead them to it. They'd been watching the house, waiting for someone desperate enough to buy it. And Eva had walked right into their trap. But now, she had flipped the board. She sat down at her kitchen table with her laptop and typed a carefully worded email, attaching digital copies of the most incriminating documents. She addressed it to Jonathan Pierce, Levin's biggest competitor and rival in city development projects. The email was set to send automatically at 3:30 p.m., 30 minutes after her scheduled meeting, unless she logged in and canceled it. Next, she prepared a fake set of files, just enough to look convincing at first glance, but with all the truly damning evidence removed. "Two can play this game," she whispered, sealing the decoy documents in an envelope. At 2:45 p.m., Eva pulled into the construction site parking lot. The area was deserted, work had stopped for the weekend. Wind whipped through the skeletal framework of the half-built tower, creating an eerie whistling sound. She clutched her purse containing the fake documents, and took a deep breath before stepping out of her car. Immediately, she spotted two men emerging from a black SUV parked near the site office. The same men who had followed her yesterday. "Ms. Holloway," the taller one called. "Glad you could make it." Eva clutched the envelope tighter. "I have what you want. Where's the money?" The man smirked. "Mr. Levon would like to speak with you first." "That wasn't the deal," Eva replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "The deal changed when you started making copies," the second man said, stepping closer. "Did you really think we wouldn't be watching the copy shop?" Eva's stomach dropped, but she maintained her composure. "Insurance policy." "I'm not stupid." "No, clearly not," said a new voice. Marcus Levon himself emerged from the side office, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that seemed out of place amid the dirt and construction materials. He was just as Eva remembered from the funeral, tall, silver-haired, with the practiced smile of a man accustomed to getting his way. "I believe you have something that belongs to me, Mrs. Holloway," Levon said smoothly. "Something that poor James Hollister was foolish enough to think he could use against me." $5 million, Eva said. That was the agreement. Levon laughed, the sound cold and hollow. That agreement died with James. You're merely an unexpected complication. Eva could feel the situation slipping away from her. These men hadn't come to negotiate. They'd come to tie up loose ends. Just then, the sound of tires on gravel broke the tension. A sleek black car pulled into the lot, and all heads turned. What the hell is he doing here? Levon growled as a slender man stepped out of the vehicle. Eva recognized him instantly from news photos. Jonathan Pierce, Levon's former partner and current rival. She hadn't expected her leverage to arrive in person. But now, as both sides eyed each other with undisguised hostility, she realized the real game was just beginning. Marcus, Jonathan Pierce called out, walking toward them with the confidence of a man who feared nothing. Fancy meeting you here on a Saturday. And with company. Unlike Levon's polished appearance, Pierce had the look of old money that didn't need to impress. Worn designer jeans, an expensive but casual jacket, and shrewd eyes that missed nothing. This is a private meeting, Levon snapped. Leave now, Jonathan. Pierce smiled, stopping a cautious distance away. I received an interesting phone call about an hour ago. Something about documents that might interest me? His gaze shifted to Eva. You must be Mrs. Holloway. Eva's mind raced. She hadn't called Pierce, she'd only set up the automated email. Someone else must have tipped him off. But who? Levon's men moved closer to Eva, one of them grabbing her arm. Give me the envelope, he growled. I wouldn't do that, Pierce warned. My attorney is parked down the street, along with a private security team. If I don't check in every 5 minutes, they're coming in, with copies of everything already sent to the district attorney. He was bluffing. He couldn't have the files yet. But the uncertainty on Levon's face was worth gold. You're lying, Levon said, but doubt had crept into his voice. Am I? Pierce pulled out his phone. Should we call the DA right now? I'm sure he'd be interested to hear about the Westridge Apartments deal. Or perhaps the cash transactions through North Shore Holdings? Eva watched Levon's face pale. Those specific details weren't public. Pierce must have had his own suspicions all along. He just needed proof. You've been watching me for years, Levon accused. Someone had to, Pierce replied coldly. After what happened to James, I knew it was only a matter of time before you slipped up. The mention of James Hollister created an opening. Eva pulled away from the guard's loosened grip. James Hollister didn't commit that, did he? She asked, looking directly at Levon. The construction site fell silent except for the whipping of the wind through steel beams. Accidents happen in this business, Levon finally said, his voice eerily calm. James should have taken the money and disappeared. Instead, he got greedy. Then he got scared. By the end, he was a liability. Just like I am now? Eva challenged. Just like you are now, Levon confirmed, nodding to his men, who drew their weapons. Pierce stepped back, raising his hands. Think about what you're doing, Marcus. 3 bodies is a lot harder to explain than 1. There won't be bodies, one of Levon's men said. Construction accidents happen all the time, especially in foundations about to be poured. Eva's heart pounded. The situation was spiraling out of control. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a timer reminder. It was 3:25. In 5 minutes, her email would automatically send to Pierce, the DA, and 3 news outlets. The documents you want, she said quickly. They're not all here. I've set up a manned switch. If I don't stop it, everything goes public in 5 minutes. She's bluffing, Levon's second man said. Maybe, Eva replied calmly, despite her racing heart. But can you afford to take that chance? $5 million was the price before. I'm willing to negotiate now. Pierce looked at her with newfound respect. I'll double whatever he's offering. There's nothing to offer, Levon shouted, losing his composure. Give me those documents now. He lunged toward Eva. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Pierce moved to intercept Levon. One of Levin's men swung his gun toward Pierce. The second man grabbed for Eva's purse. Eva twisted away, the envelope falling from her hands and spilling the fake documents across the muddy ground. A gunshot echoed through the construction site. Everyone froze, staring at the weapon that had discharged into the air. "Nobody move!" A voice boomed from the entrance to the site. A third vehicle had arrived unnoticed during the confrontation, a dark sedan with plates. 2 men in suits approached, badges extended. "FBI," one announced. "Everyone on the ground, hands where we can see them." In the chaos that followed, Levin shouting about jurisdiction, his men being disarmed, Pierce smiling knowingly, Eva made her decision. While all attention was focused on the confrontation between Levin and the federal agents, she slowly backed away, one step at a time. No one noticed as she slipped behind a stack of construction materials, and then quickly made her way to the far side of the site where a gap in the security fencing offered escape. By the time anyone thought to look for her, Eva Holloway was gone, along with the knowledge of where the real evidence was hidden. Behind her, she could hear Levin's enraged voice. "Find her! She has everything!" But it was too late. At exactly 3:30 p.m., as Eva slipped into a taxi several blocks away, her scheduled email delivered its explosive contents to people who would ensure Levin could never hurt her. The game wasn't just flipped, it was completely transformed. And for the first time since Robert's death, Eva felt something like power returning to her life. 1 week later, Eva sat in a small cafe, newspaper spread before her, cap pulled low over her eyes. The headline told the story. Real estate mogul Marcus Levin indicted on fraud and racketeering charges. The article detailed how an anonymous whistleblower had provided evidence of a decade-long money laundering operation. 2 of Levin's associates had already turned state's evidence. FBI investigators were now reviewing all of Levin Development's projects for the past 15 years. A smaller article on page 3 mentioned the reopening of the James Hollister case, now being investigated. Eva sipped her coffee, a strange sense of calm washing over her. She had spent 3 days in a budget motel after the confrontation, waiting to see if anyone would come looking for her. When no one did, she had carefully retrieved the original documents from the library and handed them over to the FBI through an attorney she found online, all while remaining anonymous. Her phone chimed with a banking alert. Eva nearly dropped her cup when she saw the notification. Deposit, $750,000, transfer completed. The money had appeared in her account without explanation, the source hidden behind layers of offshore banking. Eva had a pretty good idea where it came from. Jonathan Pierce had gotten what he wanted, Levin's downfall and a chance to acquire his rival's properties at fire sale prices. This was his way of saying thank you without leaving a trace. It wasn't $5 million, but it was more than enough. 2 weeks after that, Eva stood in the front yard of her house on Willow Lane, watching a contractor install new windows. The place was barely recognizable from the abandoned wreck she'd purchased. New siding gleamed in the sun, the porch had been rebuilt, and the yard was now neatly landscaped. "Mrs. Holloway?" The contractor approached with a clipboard. "We've finished the electrical rewiring. Did you want to discuss the kitchen renovation next?" Eva nodded, smiling. "Let's make it modern but practical. Nothing too flashy." She had decided against selling the house after all. Something about starting fresh in a place with so much history felt right. The neighborhood was improving, property values rising. And nobody knew the house's secrets except her. The roll-top desk had been carefully restored and now sat in her new home office. She'd found a matching key for the lock at an antique store. Sometimes, late at night, she would sit at the desk and think about the strange chain of events that had brought her here, how close she'd come to losing everything, and how an old house and a desperate gamble had changed her life. 3 months after the confrontation at the construction site, Eva received an unexpected visitor. She opened her front door to find Jonathan Pierce standing on her newly rebuilt porch. "Mrs. Holloway," he said with a slight smile, "your renovation is coming along nicely." Eva tensed. "How did you find me?" "I make it my business to know things," Pierce replied. "May I come in?" I promise this isn't a threatening visit. Cautiously, Eva invited him into her living room. The space was now bright and inviting, with no trace of the abandoned house it had once been. I wanted to thank you personally, Pierce said, declining her offer of coffee. What you did took extraordinary courage. I didn't do it for you, Eva said plainly. No, Pierce agreed. You did it to survive. Which is why I'm here with a proposition. He explained that he was acquiring several of Levin's former properties in foreclosure auctions. Some needed renovation before they could be remarketed. His usual contractor was booked solid. I've seen what you've done with this place, Pierce continued. On a limited budget, no less. I'm impressed. I'd like to hire your company to handle the renovations. Eva blinked. I don't have a company. You could, Pierce said simply. With your eye for potential and my capital, we could transform properties all over the city. Nothing illegal, just good business. Eva considered the offer. She had already been thinking about buying another fixer-upper with some of her unexpected windfall. The idea of turning her newfound skills into a legitimate business was appealing. I'll draw up the paperwork, she said finally. 50-50 partnership, but I maintain creative control over the renovations. Pierce raised an eyebrow, then laughed. You drive a hard bargain, Mrs. Holloway. But I accept. 6 months later, Holloway Renovations had completed 3 major projects and had contracts for 5 more. Eva had hired a small team and was becoming known for finding hidden value in properties others had written off as hopeless cases. On the anniversary of Robert's death, Eva stood in the cemetery, placing flowers on his grave. So much had changed in a year. She had lost nearly everything, gambled her last dollars on an abandoned house, and found herself entangled in a dangerous web of secrets. That abandoned house hadn't just held secrets, it had handed her a second chance. And this time, she was building an empire of her own. She touched Robert's headstone gently. I wish you could see me now, she whispered. Then, straightening her shoulders, Eva walked back to her car, a new model, paid for in cash, and drove toward her next project. The Black Widow had not only survived, she had thrived.